Hello friends, how are you all? This is Lakshay Arora and welcome back to my channel. So in this video I'm going to tell you what are Azure Virtual Machines. I'm going to tell you from scratch. So this lecture will be completely on Azure Virtual Machines. So I've prepared small brief notes on that. You can note down these points as well because these points are asked in Azure admin interview as well. So let's get started. So first of all, what are Azure Virtual Machines? So Azure Virtual Machines are nothing, just they are your virtualized servers. Like we have physical servers in data centers. Many companies have private data centers and they have lots and lots of servers which are spread over a large area. So those are called physical servers where we have racks, we have cooling, we have all the network installation, we have different routers, switches, and all the hardware components that you see when you go to a data center. So those virtual machines are physical in the data center, but we are using that virtual machine by sitting in our home. We are launching whenever there is a need for us to launch a virtual machine. We simply go to the Azure portal or maybe to AWS or GCP portal and simply get a virtual machine. So that is a virtualized form of your server. So that we simply call it as virtual machine. Different names are given by different cloud providers. Azure calls it virtual machines, Amazon calls it EC2 instances, Elastic Compute Cloud. So these are all just virtualized physical servers. That's it. Like VM are like servers, but they are virtualized, and Hyper-V is used as a virtualization software. For virtualization, Microsoft uses hypervisor, which is basically a virtualization software to virtualize your system on a host operating system. So this is like Azure Virtual Machine. So, and second thing, Azure Virtual Machine comes in two tiers: basic tiers and standard tiers. So basic tier, as the name suggests, it is basically used in for development and testing purpose. For production workloads, we do not use basic tier, we prefer standard tiers. So let's start with basic tier. So basic tier, as I told, it is for development and testing, and it comes in five sizes: A0, A1, A2, A3, A4. So these are the different series, you can say, which comes in basic tier. So, and in case of standard tier is basically used for production workloads. So standard tier consists of these series. You, like in interviews, interviewer sometimes ask what are the different series in basic tier and standard tier. You, at least you should remember these series names. If you are not able to remember these further keywords, then it's fine, but at least you should know what are the different series, because if you're working as an Azure admin, then definitely you should know. If you are working as a DevOps engineer, then no worries, it will be fine, but if you're working as an Azure administrator, then definitely you should know. So standard tier consists of A series, D series, DV2 series, D version 2 series we call DV2, F series, G series, N series. So before that, I will like to tell you the types of virtual machines, then we will go back to standard tier. So types of virtual machines. Don't confuse in this between series and types of virtual machines. Types is completely different and series is completely different. So if anyone asks types of virtual machines, then this is the answer you have to give. These are the different types of virtual machines in Azure. In AWS, we have different names. So I'm basically concerned about Azure only. So types of VMs are general purpose virtual machines, GPU optimized virtual machines, storage optimized virtual machines, compute optimized virtual machines, memory and high performance optimized virtual machines. So let us discuss one by one. As the name suggests, for general purpose virtual machines. So these general purpose virtual machines are only used for general purpose. In these type of virtual machines, no specific no specific high CPU or high memory is there. All the different parameters are in optimized state, in balanced state. Like you will get some amount of CPU, some amount of memory, some amount of storage, Okay, so some amount of compute capacity. So all these different things will be in balanced state. So if you want, these general purpose VMs are mainly used in your for like for the general purpose, like if you want to host any normal, if you want to do any practice on Azure, then you can use general purpose VMs, or for development and testing also we can use general purpose VMs. Like if you want high memory or high storage or high CPU, if you have any specific requirement, then you cannot use this general purpose VMs. For that we have different types of other categories in VMs which we will discuss. So these are just your balanced set of all the parameters. Now comes GPU optimized. So GPU optimized, as the name suggests, it is basically required when you need high GPU capacity, high graphics. Like for gaming purpose, we use GPU optimized VMs. For migration purpose, we use GPU optimized VMs. So GPU optimized VMs have NVIDIA graphic card installed. So these GPU VMs comes with NVIDIA graphic cards. So if there is any like requirement for high performance, high network graphics we want, then we basically use GPU optimized virtual machines. Now comes storage optimized virtual machines. The storage optimized virtual machine, obviously they will be used when we need high storage. When there is a requirement like we need a specific storage, specific type of storage, then we use this storage optimized VMs. And similarly for others, compute optimized, they are basically used when we want high computing capacity. When there is a requirement we need high CPU cores, or a particular amount of CPU cores should be present in your virtual machines, then we use this compute optimized. And memory optimized, obviously when we will be needing high amount of RAM, let's say several GBs of RAM, high memory is required. There is any particular operation which is going on in your company, or some new POC is being done in your company and you want high memory should be there, then you use memory optimized virtual machines. Next comes high performance. High performance virtual machine will be used when we need all high memory, high compute capacity, high graphics. We overall the performance of the virtual machine should be excellent, should be very good. Then we use high performance virtual machines. So you should know, no need to like study a lot about these types of VMs. You should only know the types and just basics, 1 or 2 lines, so that you can answer in your interviews. Generally this question will not be asked, but if it is asked from you, then you should know at least like what to answer and what are these types of VMs. Basics you should know. Now let's come back to standard tier. So as I told, standard tier is basically preferred for production workloads. So we have different series: A, D, DV2, F, G, N. So A series is basically found in these general purpose types of VMs. When you will create a virtual machine through portal, you will see that you will have these options. If you are using free trial, I don't think it will show or not, but if you are using a company specific subscription, it will show up. So A series is basically comes under this general purpose virtual machines. Similarly D series. So D series, basically these types of VMs include solid state drives, SSD storage. So when you will create a virtual machine, by default premium SSD is selected. So we have two other types of storage also, two other types of disk, standard SSD and standard HDD. HDD is hard disk drive and standard solid state drive in premium. When you will create a VM, by default premium SSD will be selected, this premium SSD. You can deselect it, you can change the category also if you want, but by default premium SSD will be there. So D series, basically these types of VMs comes with SSD storage. So SSD storage are like more preferred as compared to HDD storage. And SSD storage, basically they switch on your VMs much faster as compared to HDD storage. So companies basically prefer these SSD storage. Nowadays laptops are also coming with SSD storage, so that boot time of your laptop is less. Your Windows or Linux, whatever will be the OS, will start up immediately. If it is HDD storage, then obviously it will take much time to boot up your VM. Now is DV2 series. So DV2 is similarly a second version of D series, DV2 series. These are 35% faster, like these have CPUs which are 35% faster. Next is F series. F series are lower priced compute types of virtual machines. Next is G series and N series. G series are basically these have largest VM size up to 448 GB of RAM we get, and up to 64 GB 64 TB hard disk space we get in these G series types of VMs. If we have any requirement like we want high RAM, high storage, then we basically go for G series. Next and the last is N series. N series basically these comes under this GPU optimized VMs, because N series types of VMs have NVIDIA installed, so these comes under GPU types of VMs. And G series will come under obviously in storage optimized. We need high RAM and high storage. These can also be considered under memory optimized. So these are the basic tier, standard tier and types of VMs. And VM disk size limit is 1 terabyte. You can have like more disks, but VM disk size limit is 1 TB in Azure. And these are the IOPS, input output per second. In standard type of tier we have 500 IOPS, and in premium we get 5000 IOPS. Input output per second, it means how readily the data can be fetched to and from your storage. So those are called IOPS. Obviously in premium we have to pay extra, and cost is high to get better IOPS. This is the most important question, and generally it is asked in Azure interviews. Format of disk type. In Azure the disk type format is .vhd files. If you will go to your storage account and your containers, you will see that you have VHDs, .vhd types of files installed. This is the format .vhd. Next comes how to create virtual machine. So there are several ways you can create virtual machine on Azure. You can use Azure portal, that is very simple. You need to simply fill up the fields and click on next, fill up different fields and review and create. That's how you create a virtual machine in portal. You can use Azure PowerShell as well. PowerShell, if you are aware of PowerShell, then you need to write a script in PowerShell. You need to write consider all the resources, VNet, subnets, and all these parameters you need to consider. Then you can deploy that PowerShell script through CI/CD pipeline, or many ways are there to deploy. You can create virtual machine through ARM templates as well. So I would suggest, if you want to create ARM template, then use Visual Studio Code and install an ARM extension in that Visual Studio Code. So there you can easily create a ARM template to create a virtual machine. Last is Azure CLI. So Azure also has a feature, Azure CLI. So from that also you can create virtual machines. Now comes disk types: premium SSD, standard, and standard SSD. So as I told earlier, we have different types of disks on Azure virtual machines. Premium SSD, which comes by default. Standard HDD, these are generally not preferred because they are like too slow and your VM may take time to boot up. And standard SSD. So these are different types of disks. Networking. Now comes networking. So when you will create a virtual machine in Azure, obviously by default there will be one VNet selected, one subnet, public IP and NSG, and all that networking stuff will be auto generated, auto populated for you. If you want to change these parameters, then you can create your own virtual network. In real time, when you will be creating your virtual machines, obviously you will be either creating a new virtual network or using the existing company virtual network to create your VM in that. You will be, these all depends upon the situation. If you are doing it for practice only, then I would suggest create your own VNet, subnet, and create your own public IP and NSG, so that you will come to know how these things work. So I will create a separate video on Azure networking, because that is a long and vast topic, so I will not cover that in this video. Now comes management. So when you will create a virtual machine, one management section is also there, where you have options of auto shutdown, auto backup. If you want your virtual machine to auto backup, you can turn that option on. If you want your virtual machine to do a auto shutdown, you can turn that option on as well. An identity option is also there. And last comes the tags. So in real time, obviously you will be giving some tags. So tags are basically nothing, they are just key value pairs, name and their value. Let's suppose you are creating a virtual machine for your production, then you can keep a tag as environment and the tag value will be prod or production, whatever is the name you want to give. So tags are very important when you create a virtual machine because they help you to identify your different resources, what is the type of resource. So let me go to Azure portal. I will show you just a basic idea how to create a virtual machine. Click on add virtual machine. It will display a, see, these are create a virtual machine that runs Linux or Windows. In Microsoft Azure we have two options, Windows or Linux. You can also select an image from Azure Marketplace. So Azure Marketplace has lots of pre-built templates, or you can say images, that you can use to create a virtual machine. So to create a virtual machine, first you need to select a subscription. You will be selecting your own subscription. Mine is free trial subscription. Next you will be selecting resource group. I'm selecting pre-created resource group. If you don't have resource group, you can click on create new, enter the resource group name, click on OK. I'm giving a name to my virtual machine, If suppose like it says displays error that virtual machine name is not available, you can change the name accordingly. Next you need to select the region, in which region you want to create virtual machine. So Azure has different availability zones, different regions. So you can create a virtual machine in your region accordingly. You can select the region. See East US to West US. Lots of regions are there. I don't remember the exact count. You can check it out in Microsoft documents. And availability options, that is a great option from Microsoft. No infrastructure redundancy, or you can select availability zone. If you will select availability zone, then you need to specify the availability zone, how much availability zones like you want. See, if you will click on this, Azure offers a range of options for managing availability and resiliency. So this is basically a high availability solution from Microsoft. If you are like creating a mission critical virtual machine, like which is very critical and you cannot afford to lose a single bit of data, then only use this availability options, or you can place your virtual machines in availability set. But one thing I want to tell you, like in interviews this question is asked, like if you have created a virtual machine, can that virtual machine be placed in an availability set? Answer is no. Virtual machine can only be placed in an availability set whenever it is being created. After it is created, you cannot place it in any availability set. Availability set, you can select create a virtual machine in an availability set. You can select the availability zone. I'm selecting no infrastructure. This is the type of image you want. You want Ubuntu, RHEL, CentOS, Debian, Oracle, or Windows Server. So these are different types of images. This is the size. You can select your own size. So we have different types of series, DS1, A1, D2S. So these are all different types of series. You can select type username. I am selecting my username. Type your password. There is some password policy so that you need to adhere to, and then public inbound ports. If you will select none, all traffic from the internet will be blocked by default. You will be able to change inbound port rules in the VM networking page. Public inbound ports none, like no internet traffic can come into this virtual machine. Now select allow selected ports, select inbound ports. You can select these ports. So these ports will be eligible. Traffic can come from these types of ports. Would you like to use an existing Windows server? This is one more feature of Azure. Bring your own license, BYOL. This we will discuss later. Lecture is getting too long. OS disk type is premium SSD. It is the default, which I told you earlier. Standard HDD can also be selected. Standard SSD can also be selected. See, Microsoft recommend premium SSD for high IOPS workload. Virtual machines with premium SSD disk qualify for the 99.9% connectivity SLA. Select premium SSD, encryption, leave all this blank. These are the data disk, which we will study later, and this is the networking part. See, virtual network, subnet, public IP, all comes by default. You can change these virtual network, subnet, public IP as per your requirement. As if you will create a virtual machine in your real-time environment, then obviously you will be changing these parameters. NIC, all these parameters you can change. Load balancing, you can place this virtual machine in the backend pool. This is just your own practice, and you can play around with these things. Boot diagnostics, we can disable. OS guest diagnostic basically collects all the logs and performance counters of your VMs. Auto shutdown, we can enable this, but we need to pay extra for that. See, you need to specify the time when the machine should be auto shut down. Notification before shutdown. So there are lots of things you can play around with. Next is the advanced settings. You can install extensions, so various things you can do. VM generation, host, group. Next is tags. As I told, you can give name and its value, and finally click on review and create, and it will start validating, like if you have filled all the necessary information or not. It will also show you like how much cost will be there per hour. So cost depends on various factors: type of storage, type of series you have selected. So different like things, parameters decides your cost. So I'm not creating it, I have just like to show you how we can create virtual machine. So yeah, that's it guys for this video. I hope you have like got a pretty good idea like how virtual machines work, what are Azure virtual machines. If still you want any one more lecture on these virtual machines, then I can create. Please drop a comment in the comment section for that, so that I will come to know and I will start like preparing for that. Okay guys, thank you, bye bye, take care, happy learning.